Hi everyone, I'm Jamie from Not So Wimpy Teacher, and I wanted to go ahead and chat with you today all about communicating with challenging parents. Okay, so if you've been teaching for long at all, you've probably had a parent or two or three get a wee bit upset with you. Am I right? It happens. And you're not alone because it happens to the greatest of teachers too. Not just you. I promise. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, just be aware. It probably will. You will at some point have a parent who is upset with you or something that has happened in your classroom. And they may email you or call you or even just skip right over you and contact your principal and say some very unpleasant things about you and your ability to teach. It happens, okay? So I'm guessing that if you are listening to this right now, that it has probably happened to you, okay? I'm going to tell you a little story. I can't get into specifics because, of course, privacy, but I was a first-year teacher. It was the fall of my very first year of teaching, and one of my sweet kiddos, he honestly was an amazing student, super easy to work with. He got a 6 out of 10 on his grammar quiz for the week. Okay. When I input that 6 out of 10 into his grade, it brought down his percentage a few percentage points, but it was still a very high grade. I marked down that I needed to help reteach the student this one particular grammar skill, and I kind of moved on, right? I didn't think it was really all that big a deal. It was one small quiz. We took one every single week, so there were lots of points available, and his overall grade was still quite high. Over the weekend, I received a threatening email from this child's father. And it was very threatening. It said, "I know where you live and I'm going to come to your house. I cannot believe that you gave my child this grade and I am going to come and give you a piece of my mind." Okay, I lived in a small town and he might actually know exactly where I live. And I was home alone at night as my husband worked nights with my children. So I was scared. I was legitimately fearful. I'd never had somebody threaten to come to my home and perhaps even harm me. I thought the whole grammar thing was kind of a minimal situation. I think it was really super big deal. But I really started to doubt myself too. Could I have done something differently? Maybe I never should have input that grade. Maybe not. I called my principal, and that's hard when you're a brand new teacher to have to call your principal over the weekend and say, I'm legitimately scared. This happened. She was amazing about the whole situation. She personally contacted the parent and handled it. And for the rest of the year, anytime parents were invited into the classroom, parent-teacher conferences or open houses, someone from the admin team was there. That being said, I never, ever saw this father. He never actually came in the classroom. Mom did, and she was perfectly pleasant with me and never even mentioned this grammar score. But the whole situation made me feel like maybe I wasn't good enough to be a teacher. It made me feel like I was a little in over my head. And then other moments I would go into this seriously, it was just a grammar quiz. Mentality of I did not deserve to be treated that way. I can't believe this all happened. And I let the situation bring me down for several weeks. And over the years, I've had multiple parents get upset about something or other. I've never been threatened quite that way, but I have had parents who've gotten upset over something. And I've learned how to better communicate with those parents so that I am not letting the situation bring me down and my spouse, because I, of course, went to Scott and had to tell him the whole story and complain about it for multiple days. So now I'm learning how to communicate with these parents so that it doesn't bring me down, my family down, my coworkers down. Because the reality is that we are going to deal with parents who are upset, And there are good ways to handle this, and there are ways that are just going to make you feel angry over and over again. All right. So I wanted to come on here and share with you some of my tips and some of the tips that Stacy and Lindsay on my team, on the Not So Wimpy team, have also, we just sat and had a long conversation about challenging parents and how we dealt with them in our classroom. And so I'm going to share some of the tips that we came up with. And the very first thing that I need to tell you is that we have to change our mindset. So I might be saying that I'm teaching you how to work with challenging parents, but the first thing I want you to do is stop calling them challenging parents. I want you to rethink how you are describing this parent, and instead of calling them a challenging parent, I want to challenge you to think of them as a loving parent. Is it going to be easy every time? No. But I really want it. That's why it's a challenge. It's not going to be easy, but I really want you to attempt this. So yeah, when that father emailed me and scared me, that was not right. He did not have the right to do that at all. But now that I'm stepped back from it and thinking about it, he loved his son, and he was discouraged by his son's score and felt that something else should have been done because he loved his son. Well, it's really hard for me to say that because I certainly didn't deserve to be treated that way, and I don't think you are either, and I don't think that should be allowed. But when I start thinking of it as a loving parent who doesn't know what to do, but he knows that he wants to help his son, okay? It does help me when I think of him that way. And Lindsay on my team, she had a principal that once told her this, and I love this quote that she shared with me. That child is their whole world. Always remember this when you're working with a parent that is challenging you. That child's their whole world. Okay, so they don't have all the other children that you have in your classroom to think about. It's that child. It's their whole world. And so when something's not going well for that child, they turn into that mama bear or that papa bear mode of wanting to protect them and make everything right for them. We may not always agree with their tactics, because the reality is the tactic that father used when he emailed me was inappropriate. So we don't have to agree with those tactics at all, but it will make it easier for you to get through these situations and help the student when we start thinking of the parent as someone who is loving. They just want what's best for their child. And although we may not agree what's best for their child, it's really not our position as a teacher to decide what is best for their child. We have to let them be the parent. And so there is going to be some strife sometimes where what we feel is best in the classroom, the parent does not feel is best for their child. But when we start to just think of them as, that's just a loving parent, they're just wanting what's best for their child. When we think that way, I think we're more open to coming up with a solution than when we are just thinking, they're so challenging, they're driving me crazy. In that position, we're venting and we're not looking for a solution. But when we change that mindset and we say, okay, they are a loving parent. They want what's best for the child. I also want what's best for the child. Now we're looking for a solution. How can we work together and come up with a solution that's going to benefit the child? Because here's the reality. We both want what's best for the child. And we have to learn to respect the parent and their opinion about what is best. Okay. So I know this is going to be probably the hardest part of all of my tips is changing that mindset. You don't have a challenging parent, a tough parent, a hard parent. You have a loving parent. And that's the first step, okay? Now, next step, let's talk about setting some boundaries, because you do deserve to have boundaries when it comes to relationships with parents and the communicating with parents, okay? They do need to treat you a certain way. Obviously, the parent threatening me was overboard, right? And you do not need to be in those types of positions. First thing, and I tell new teachers this all the time, but I still think that every teacher needs to hear this from time to time, is set boundaries as far as responding to emails and phone calls from parents. One thing that I found I did a lot was I would open my school email as soon as I saw a message. And so I was reading email at night when I was with my family or on the weekend when I was enjoying my time off. So I'd open up this email and see this angry message about a grade or an angry message about something that happened on the playground. And I would let that ruin my evening or my weekend. And I think you need to set boundaries, teachers. I feel like you should communicate with your families and let them know that when you will be responding to emails and phone calls, and you can just let them know that I respond to emails and phone calls Monday through Friday until 4:30 p.m. After 4:30, if you send me an email, I definitely will respond to you, but it will be the next morning. If your school has requirements, most schools, they give you like 24 or 48 hours to respond. So make sure parents know that. Because I think if you're upfront from the beginning about the fact that I don't return school emails over the weekend, but you're welcome to send them and I will take a look at them first thing Monday morning. Don't open them, teachers. Like if you're going to set this routine up with your parents, if you're going to tell them, I'm sorry, I will be with my family during that time, but I'll be happy to email you on Monday, then don't look at them over the weekend. And I think this is really hard because nowadays it's just so easy to check your email from anywhere that you're at that you're tempted. But the thing is, one email can ruin your whole weekend. And you need and deserve that time with your family. So it's tricky, okay? But I really think that when you give yourself the space and the breaks, then when you come back on Monday, you can handle that situation right away versus reading it Friday night, thinking about it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, not even being able to talk to the student until Monday. Now you've let it fester and it gets worse. Whereas if you read it Monday morning, you're like, wow, I didn't even know that happened on the playground. Let me talk to the student this morning and then I'll email you back and let you know. Now you can just handle it right away versus festering over the problem and letting it ruin your downtime. So set some boundaries. Decide when do you respond to calls and emails. Let families know this and just say it really professionally. Like, I want to help you if you have questions. However, I am going to be with my own family over the weekend, and so I will get back to you on Mondays. And I have even seen teachers who'd put an out of office on their email. And so if you email them on a Saturday morning, the parent gets a response back that says something like, thank you so much for your email. I am spending time with my family over the weekend and will respond to your message on Monday morning. Now parents don't think you're ignoring them, and they usually respect the fact that you two have a family and a life outside of school. So consider setting some boundaries. Okay. I have had instances where I've had phone calls with parents and we didn't always agree later on what happened on that phone call. And so they would go to the principal and say, well, she said this on the phone call. And I said, I did not even say anything like that. So another thing to consider with phone calls is that you may, if you know that you're making a phone call that's a little bit more sensitive, you may want to have a witness who's just sitting near you, a coworker or an administrator who's nearby, just to make sure that you are staying on track and being professional. You can kind of have a signal like, oop, you're getting emotional instead of professional. Because it's so easy. We feel attacked as human beings when someone's mad. Instead of seeing that, okay, what kind of solution can we come to? We tend to just feel attacked. Okay. And then another thing is when parents are coming to you on the fly, like at carpool, and they're really angry about things, sometimes it's best to say, hey, I've got an appointment here in a few minutes and I really want to talk to you about what's happening. Can we schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon? This gives them a little bit of time to calm down. It also gives you a little bit of time to look into the situation and not feel like you have to respond on the fly. Because it's hard when they come at us on the fly and we didn't get the opportunity to think it through the way they did. Sometimes that's a good strategy to use. But please, teachers, remember that you can set some boundaries, and you should set some boundaries about communicating with parents, because we want to do our best not to react with anger. Let's spend some time chatting about emails because, my friends, I don't like calling people on the phone. It makes me so uncomfortable. Like, I don't even like to call my doctor's office to make an appointment. I don't want to talk on the phone. I feel like everything should be handled via email. That's just who I am, but it's not who everyone is, right? So a lot of parents want to chat on the phone. When you're deciding, like, should I email or should I call, I think it's really important that you consider this topic and how sensitive it may be. If it is more serious or sensitive, then it probably is deserving of a phone call. In an email, they cannot hear your voice. They cannot hear how caring and concerned you are, and it's easy for them to turn your words into anger. And we don't want that because that's not going to lead us to the solution that we're looking for, right? So always think about that. I had a student once that I suspected had been cheating on a test. That is not something to send via email. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. I just want to let you know that I caught your son cheating on a test today. If you could please talk to him about that, thanks. No. Because now the parent doesn't know that you're really concerned about him. I'm wondering, is he feeling he needs a copy on the test because he's not feeling comfortable with this content? How can I help him feel more comfortable with the content? And how can we help him to understand that if he's not comfortable with content, he should talk to us rather than cheating? And that email just doesn't convey that sort of feeling. So it requires a phone call, right? So when you're thinking, should I email, should I phone call? The more serious, the more sensitive the issue, it's usually best to do a phone call, okay? Okay, in the emails though, let's just say you think this is a instance where an email would be acceptable. We just have to be very careful in the email because an email lasts forever. They can forward it, they can screenshot it and put it on social media. They can do all kinds of things with it. And so we really need to think about our words in the email. Always stick to facts, things that you absolutely know happened, not suspicions as much as facts. I like to ask parents questions rather than just telling them what happened and telling them what the punishment will be. I like to ask, have you ever seen this at home? What do you do at home? What have you found motivates him in this area? It helps to make the parents know that you care about what they think and what they have to say. And ultimately, it leads to a much better solution anyway. I can tell them that I saw this happen and so I did this. But when I ask them, hey, what would motivate your child? What do you notice motivates him the most? I would love to motivate him to do more of his work during our center time so that he's not distracting himself and classmates. So have you noticed things that really motivate him? Is it compliments or is there certain types of things that he gets really excited about? When we ask questions in our emails, parents know that we're legitimately looking for the best solution for their child. We're not doing a one size fits all, and that's helpful, okay? But definitely when we're thinking about email, really think about whether or not it's the best way to communicate with parents. The phone call may be the way to go. But friends, when you make this phone call, really, really think about what you might be interrupting. And that's what leads me to get all icky about making phone calls because I don't know what they're doing when the phone rings and they choose to answer it. And then you're going to tell them some bad news probably, right? But you don't know if they just found out that maybe mom just found out her mom fell and broke her hip and is going to need surgery. Or maybe she just got in a fight with her spouse or a sibling. Maybe she just got an unexpected bill in the mail or her boss cut her hours or even she got laid off. We don't know what happened in the moments or even the day that you call. We have no idea how stressed out she is about things that honestly to her are much more important than whatever you're about to say, right? Because losing your job, much more important than he talks too much in class to the mom. So we have to really think that through. So when they're calling, always start by asking, would this be a good time for us to chat? Or would you rather schedule another time that would be more convenient for you? This gives them an out to say, you know what, actually, I'm having a really crummy day. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Yes, absolutely. Okay, gives them an out. And that's important. But also when you talk to them about, the child that's talking a lot in class, they're getting angry and really upset with you, you definitely want to pull back and say, hey, I feel like we're not really making a lot of headway in solving this situation. I think I want to take some more time to think it through. Would you mind if we scheduled a meeting for later this week? Blame yourself, my friend. And I know that's hard because you're probably feeling attacked at this point. But to say, I'm having trouble coming up with a really good solution to this situation. I want all of us to feel so good about the solution we're coming up with. I'd like to think a little bit more about it. And can we meet in person later this week? If you need to invite admin to this meeting, you can, but there is something about meeting in person that helps to make it a little more effective conversation, because now you're not interrupting a conversation. They have taken the time to come to the school, and that usually breaks some of their tension. Okay, so definitely if the phone call or the email is starting to just go in a direction that is not positive, stop it as soon as you can and just say, hey, I really need a little bit more time to think through this. I feel like there's a really good solution to this and I just need a little more time to think it through. Can we talk at another point? And I find this to be a really good strategy because actually it allows them to calm down. It allows me to calm down. And the reality is it does give me some time to think of a solution. Maybe I could go to a coworker who's really good at these types of situations and say, how can I help this student to be more successful? Mom's worried about this. And maybe I can come up with a solution, because the reality is, and this is my tip for you, next tip for you, is that do your best to meet in the middle. Make some kind of compromise and meet in the middle, because their opinions and feelings about what should happen should matter to you too. And you're not perfect, okay? And you may need to apologize. It's possible that your words were too harsh. It is possible that the solution you came up with right in the moment was not appropriate. It is possible that you embarrassed the child or that you said something you shouldn't have said, because you're human. So am I. We do that. It is okay, but you should apologize. I'm sorry. Now that I've had some time to think about it, I never should have said that. And I will be sure to apologize to Micah as well. Now, can we talk about what solution we want to have moving forward so that we don't have this sort of incident again? All right. But apologize if you need to apologize. And they may need to apologize as well, but they might not do it. I mean, that's kind of the bum part about it, is that you could be the big person and apologize for your part, and they may never apologize. That student's dad, he never contacted me and apologized for the threatening emails that he sent to me. And I feel like he probably should have. He didn't. And parents who say things to you that are inappropriate may never apologize. But I still want you to be professional and apologize when you need to, because I have found parents really respect that. And when you stop the argument and say, I'm sorry, now that I'm thinking about it, it's true. I shouldn't have said that. Can we come up with a solution for what we can do to help him to be more successful? And I feel like it breaks that anger pattern, and we definitely need to break that. And so we have to be professional and big people about that, okay? Next, I want you to try to choose positivity. One of the best ways to avoid these challenging parent experiences is to have a lot of positivity in your classroom. I'm not saying that you can avoid them altogether, because as I started at the beginning, you are going to have parents that get upset with you. It's just about inevitable. But if you take a little extra time each week to choose a few students and send a positive note home with them, or even call their parents to tell them that they did something positive. If you have a positive classroom culture where students are empowered, you are going to have less of these incidents. Not none, but less. So if you're finding that you're having a lot of parent issues, start to ask, what kind of changes can you make in your classroom to make the whole classroom family feel more positive? all right? It's not going to eliminate it. But again, I started this system where every week I sent home 3 positive notes, and I literally wrote the notes out, not an email. So I kept the note cards on my clipboard. That way I would remember. I put 3 on my clipboard every Monday. And as I saw a student doing something, and I didn't just choose like my dream students, I looked very carefully at those students who were a bit more challenging and tried to find something for them too. Because the reality is they too do positive things. They're not always mischievous. But I would send a note home and I would say, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, I just wanted to thank you for sharing so-and-so with me. I also wanted you to know he was amazing at working with his group today during social studies, and his group was so lucky to have him." And sign your name. I put this in an envelope and I give it to the child and say, "Hey, would you bring this home to your parents? It is a special note that I've written them about how much I love working with you." Okay, I would get emails going, "Oh my goodness, Mrs. Sears, she was so excited to show me this note, running into the house to show me this note." The thing is that there are certain students whose parents are only getting negative phone calls, negative letters home, write-ups, and these students are feeling down and out, and so are the parents. And when you can change that whole mentality to like, she likes me, she likes my child, those sorts of things make a huge difference. Now when a situation comes about, you've formed a positive relationship and they feel a little more like they can email you and say, "Hey, I think something happened on the playground. Can you look into it?" versus the name calling and the threatening that is really inappropriate. So really try to infuse a lot of positivity into your classroom. All right, teacher friends, I hope that this has all been positive. I also really hope that you're having an amazing experience with your classroom parents this year, and that continues to be the case all year because it makes it so much easier to love on and teach our students when this is the case. But if a situation should pop up, I hope that you'll take a step back and think of them as loving parents, that you'll be very careful about the words you use when you call or email, and that if a fight or anger starts to break out, that you'll step back and request a meeting. All right, have a not so wimpy day.